Alright, so it's been a while since our last video on the Cruze. As you can see, I've already started on adding some stuff. This is pretty self-explanatory. So, I'm adding in gauges and an accessory fuse block. How I'm doing it is I'm mounting all the electronics here to my cold air intake shielding. I've got a 80 amp breaker for safety, a 100 amp relay. I would have gotten a 100 amp breaker, but I could not find one anywhere, so 80 amps, which should be fine because I'm going to be doing like not even close to that. What I'm running is fog lights, they're LEDs, the gauges, which I'm adding in an AFR and oil pressure, and this should do plenty more than that. So the wiring's pretty simple, so I'll show you on the Cruze very shortly, but we're gonna run a 12 volt constant here from the car. I found where I could possibly mount one. I still have to do some more research before I continue. That'll be later in the video. This breaker runs to the relay, SerDes. SerDes is our main switching. Down here, this is like a standard relay, but for much higher amps, and you need one of these, or else you're going to cause a fire. So then we've got the switched main 12 volts running down here to the positive end on our fuse block with 87. 85 right here goes to ground. I'm going to be running a ground for this for ease of like grounding everything centrally when needed. Each of these are for the accessories that you add in. This will basically make it so this is switched power and nothing will stay on while the car is off. That is very important, or else you're going to drain your battery. This will only switch on when the ignition key is on. And that's where this 86 here will go. Now will go to a switched fuse in the main fuse block on the car that I've already found, and that's what I run my fog lights, for example, off of. I'm going to be moving my fog lights to this, and so that will switch this when the ignition key is on. That will run to ground, so this entire section's grounded. And I got all this off of Amazon. Literally everything. All this goopy stuff there is dielectric grease. I wanted to make sure nothing gets rusted or corroded, because this is in the engine bay. But I mounted all this with self-tappers. You could use bolts and stuff, but I just went self-tappers because this is basically sheet metal. And I made sure nothing will poke the filter when it's all and done. Now to the car. So everything's going to be mounted way back here. I'm going to run the wires up here. You'll see that when I get it ran. And in our fuse box here, this is what I'm talking about. This is my fog lights. I've ran this to there. I want to get rid of all this and run it through the firewall. So my car is an automatic. There's no videos on YouTube about the automatic and how to run wires through the firewall. Well, since it's an automatic, it does not have a clutch. You can't really see it. It's very difficult to see. But behind this coolant reservoir is where your clutch sleeve would be if you had one. Inside the car, excuse how dirty it is, up here, as you can see light. I drilled a pilot hole down in there to run wires. I'm going to drill it out more and run all my wiring. And the main reason I'm doing this is because of this. So this was pretty easy to do. I did this a couple days ago. There's absolutely no problems. I've got my boost gauge, my AFR, and my oil pressure. I will get to how you're going to get your oil pressure very shortly. AFR, that's simple. I'm going to drill a hole in my downpipe and then weld the bung onto it so I can get proper AFR readings. I'm going to be doing this, unlike other people, I'm actually going to do it right and run it right where the main O2 sensor is. I'm going to probably put it right here. Right about here, about. Might change my mind, but we'll see. I could run it down there, but generally speaking, if you run it there, you can get proper AFR readings. And you have to have it up. You can't have it facing down, or else it will get water and damage the sensor. I'm using all Glowshift gauges, and that's where actually I got this pillar right here. This is just a universal pillar gauge mount, pod, thing, whatever. And all I did is I drilled some holes and used the included hardware and screwed it in. I didn't quite get this completely correct, but this was the best I could do. One problem with this is that because it's a universal, it won't fit 100% correctly. Doesn't bother me any, but if you're looking for something that looks like absolutely perfect with no gaps, this might not be for you, but it works. And also another issue is that it kind of pulls on the plastic and makes it not seat right. Be careful when you go here. You want to do this out of the car. Do it outside of the car because there is an airbag behind here. And to just remove this, it just pops out with clips. And then there's almost like a spring, like tether to prevent this. So, for example, if your airbag goes off, your pillar here doesn't go into your face. If you're concerned about safety in any way, shape, or form, don't do this, because this is technically a safety hazard. That is your warning. I'm not liable if you do this and you get hurt. But since this is my car and I've decided to go this route, this is how I'm doing it. It should still be safe for me because I still have the tether attached, and down there all the wires are nicely tucked away from the airbag. As you can see, I have a boost line here. I'm going to be routing that through the clutch pedal, and I'm going to show some wiring of this stuff when I get to it, because for now all I had to do is pop off this side here, and this allowed me to run all the wires. And if you just fish it through the dash wherever you want, it works. But everything should be pretty simple. Now, where I'm tapping the main 12-volt line is probably here. I don't know if other cruises have this. I need to double check. But mine's unpopulated and there's a constant 12 volts here. So my thought is, when I run this, I can easily just put it here. And I should be able to just run it down through this slot here. Make it all nice and tidy. And that way, you'd almost never know. Except for the obvious fuse box there. Right, I was showing everything. So, I put my cold air intake shield back on. This is how it looks. Let me turn on the light so you can really see. So there's the fuse box, and then there's the breaker and relay. As you can see, I've got a wire harness out here. So, I've tucked all the wires in underneath here. I mounted the AFR module there. And I've used a stepper bit and drilled that hole larger. So what I found was the best way to get these wires through the firewall, zip tie the entire harness together, and then zip tie on the very end a coat hanger that I mangled up. And I angled it such a way, and I pushed it through. So when you push it through, it's gonna want to go through here. You don't want to do that. I found it was better to angle it out this way, underneath the charge pipes and over some wires. And that gave me enough room to get it out here. And I've now fished it out all the way out here. And now I can continue with hooking up my boost line back. And then, another thing, I have confirmed that this this stud here is M5-08. And I've got a nut there. I've got some lock washers and regular washers. So I'm going to be putting my main power through there. And that should allow me, not sure yet, but should allow there to be 12 volts there all the time. And then I can tap into here, right where I have this fuse tap. And I'm going to then cut this and run it over there so it's all nice and tidy. I will get back when I've gotten further, but this was surprisingly easy considering everything. I've literally just ran the wires through here and used these solder connectors right here. These are super neat. Let me do a quick demo. Alright, so literally you just take your fire and then it melts the solder inside. It's pretty difficult to do it outside, but it melts the solder. As you can see, it's melting. That's hot. But as you can see, it melted the solder. And you want to put your wires in first, and so it melts it together and it creates a strong connection. I actually really like these. They work really, really well. Oh, here's a good how to use. So yeah. Alright. So last I left off was I got the wire and harness through. So now I've terminated everything, connected the AFR here with these cool connectors to the extended. And then I ran to the fuse block down there, so you can see. The fuse block is now grounded from here. Ground cable runs, and I grounded it here. If you don't like this grounding location, you can choose anywhere on the body, but this seemed like the best place to put it, in my opinion. But I ran the 12 volt constants for the gauges to this constant on the breaker. That way they have memory and don't have to relearn and whatnot. Then the other prong I was talking about on the relay right there, I ran that along with the 12 volt from the before the breaker together. Behind there, I need to still zip tie some things up. All the way over here, as you can see, I ran the 12 volts right here. It's an M5-08, and I used M6 washers and a M5 lock nut. That way it doesn't come off. I also had to trim a little bit on the backside so that can get out. Then in our fuse block, our main fuse block here, ran the switched power to 45 down here. You have to have it in this orientation. 12 volts on this side, ground is on this side. Well, not ground, but accessories are on this side. So you want to have the fuse tap this orientation so the fuses work properly. And then I just have that going out. I'm not going to drill any holes in my fuse box here, but I'm going to tidy up some wires, and this is pretty much everything that I used. And here, let me show you how my gauges work. I still need to do the oil pressure and AFR sensor. I will do a video on that. Well, I'll continue on tomorrow on doing that, but as you can see, they are off.
X-band.
Gauges all work.
K-band. Laser. GPS connected.
So yeah, that's everything, pretty much. I have to put this panel back on. Still need to run my fog lights through the firewall. I will do that tomorrow. Alright, so this is a continuation from yesterday. I've drilled a hole in my downpipe. I've tacked it up. I'm going to be welding it on. Still need to do something about the wiring here. But last night I used a hole drill and drilled right here, behind here. I already covered it up, but if you shine a flashlight behind there, you can see there's an empty void about here. And this is a perfect location to put switches. Works great, can't complain. But now I'm going to do the sensors. I chose here because that's where that one is, and you need it at a slight angle. It'll fit here with no problem. This bung includes this nut here, or this bolt. You want to leave that in. That will help prevent it from warping and all that. I just used a Milwaukee hole drill that I had. So now you guys get to watch me weld. Alright, so the video ends abruptly there. I finished welding in the AFR sensor bung on my car. So I completed that. Now, next after that, I was going to go install the oil pressure sensor. And for that, I got myself one of these. It's a Glowshift oil filter sandwich plate. And the idea was I was going to install it. It goes in between the block and the oil filter to allow you to get your oil pressure reading. Because on the side it has two little ports on it that you can screw in the sensor onto. Problem is, come to find out on the block, the oil filter is actually recessed, and that didn't occur to me when I actually ordered the part. And when I ordered it and went to go and install it, I removed the oil filter and come to find out it's not perfectly flat. And the sandwich plate there needs to have a flat mating surface for it to seal. It can't be recessed. And that's the problem that I ran into, basically, is that it's not flat. And so what I ended up doing is going around to part stores, and I found an oil sensor, and I read the thread pitch of it, and it is 1/8 NPT, I think. I have to double check, but in the next video I will go over all that in clear, definitive, yeah, you get it. Basically, I ordered one of C's right here. It's a T-fit-in, and I haven't done it yet because on the LE2 the oil pressure sensor is up underneath the intake manifold and above the starter. And if you've ever looked in that spot, you can't see anything. Everything's in the way. The intake manifold's in the way, the starter's in the way. There's not a lot of room. But in the next video I will show how to get to it the easiest route. So let me put up a photo here. Alright, so as you can see, in dark gray is the sensor, and it threads into the block. Below that is where the starter would be, and above that's the fuel pump and intake manifold. As you can see, there's not a lot of space. But that I will get to that once we actually attempt the install. Since then, I've completed everything else. I'm going to show the first photo I showed. The boost gauge works, AFR gauge works, my fog lights work, everything works. I've not had battery drain issues or anything. It all works amazingly. And I did have to move my Glowshift AFR box to somewhere behind the kick panel on the right hand side, because I was hitting it with my foot. But that's just a minor detail. You honestly should probably put it under the dash where it would be most safe. But I've not had any water come in, I've not had any issues. Everything seems to work pretty great, and I can't be more happy with how it's set up. So, come the next video, we will be showing the install of the oil pressure sensor, and then this series of installing the gauges and all that will be over in part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed this and found the information to be as informative as possible. A lot of this I went in completely blind to and was kind of guessing while I did it. And what really just worked was using the stepper bit to drill that hole out in the firewall. Then welding the bung to the O2, or the O2 bung to the downpipe. I'm going to be doing that to my stock downpipe too, so when I have that on, I can still have my AFRs. And the boost gauge was really easy because I have everything already wired up and I just moved it to my auxiliary fuse block. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comment them down below, or join the Gen Cruze group and feel free to ask questions there, because I'm always there and I can always answer questions. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in part 2.